Hi everyone.
Hi Pradeep, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. Thank you, Lakshmi.
We are right on time, so let's get started.
Okay. Hi
Yeah.
everybody.
Hey, Pradeep. So let me introduce Pradeep. All right. Hey, I think for folks who don't know, this is Suresh Bose. I'm the president of Team America, and I'm really honored to welcome our keynote speaker, Pradeep Krishnan. Pradeep, he's a seasoned professional with 17 plus years of experience, extensive experience both in ADMS and QE. He has successfully led multiple QE transformations for various clients, driving significant improvements in operational efficiency and customer satisfaction. Pradeep has proven track record in implementing continuous testing solutions that included process improvements, automation, AI and Gen AI use cases across SDLC. He has delivered tangible benefits such as improved quality, enhanced release velocity, leading to overall cost optimization. And he's here in our midst. He's going to talk on engineering trust, ensuring quality in AI powered systems. Over to you, Pradeep.
Okay. So before I get started, I happen to be a part of some of the earlier sessions. Predominantly, I see a general theme where most of the companies they are moving towards how do we leverage AI in automating our testing, or how can we leverage AI to do faster, better, cheaper, all of those aspects. But there is another dimension, not to say that one is more important than the other. The second dimension is that now, when we look at our own lives, we are surrounded by a lot of non-traditional applications, whether it could be Alexa, for instance, or it could be a car, an autopilot car. So all of these are AI-based systems. So are we testing them the right way, or do we need to test them in a different way? So I'm not here to give you any answers off the cuff, but just want to throw some light on that side of the dimension and maybe evoke some thoughts. And there are some companies which are already going in that direction. My company as well, our division is working towards that. So just some thoughts around how we can test the Gen AI or AI powered applications and systems. So that would be the major part of today's discussion. Let me share my screen, and I will explain a few ideas, and then along the way, please feel free to post questions, and then we can discuss that towards the end of this meeting. So please confirm if my screen is visible with the agenda.
No, Pradeep, still waiting for his. Yeah.
Not yet? Okay. So probably the same issue which one of the other speakers had before me, right? So we were just thinking how we can avoid that. So Lakshmi, if you don't mind, would you be able to share your screen while I try and
Maybe you are on full screen. You can just come out of it and you should be able to see the blue icon on the bottom. Share screen.
yeah, I'm doing that share screen. But when I click on share, nothing happens post that. So that is the challenge.
Okay, let me do it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lakshmi. Okay, so you can straight away go to the third slide. We thank you so much for the introduction. I think you did a fabulous job, better than what I could have done. Uh, let's go to the agenda, and then I will probably request you to pause at slide number 4. So we've already 5 minutes into the meeting. So the introduction and context setting, I think, is pretty well done. Maybe if you could move to the full screen mode and stop at slide number 4, I would want to just talk about a few nuances associated with testing of a AI-powered system. So let me start with a story. Let's say we are starting a company which has AI as the central theme. So how do we ensure that we are covering all the bases? We are ensuring that our systems are aligned to the expectations of the users. So maybe you have to press on that select label, and then that would allow you to share the full screen. Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, so some nuances, maybe we won't go through all of the 10 aspects, but this is a reference model which we use typically. There can be more or less aspects. Basically, we need to ensure that first it meets our business requirements. The second thing is that how reliable is it going to be? If my data changes, how much of a difference it is going to make in the output that we are going to get. The third aspect, which we normally do not worry about in typical software applications like Salesforce or SAP or Oracle, is that is my application free from biases? If say a person with a left hand orientation uses my application, are they going to be as comfortable as someone who's using right hand for their usage? And how do they perform in a real world scenario? And for this, I actually wanted to add one slide in my version, but nevertheless, we'll talk about it as we go along. And then a few aspects around how we are ensuring with respect to the respective countries or geographical restrictions and compliance guidelines. And another aspect is that the world is changing, right? Every day we have new experiences, new learnings. How are we passing on this feedback to the AI-based system? Because once you have programmed an application, once in a while we may be getting a patch, provided there is some user complaint or some defect which has got raised. But other than that, a traditional application do not really incorporate real world feedback. But an AI system, because it interacts with human beings, it interacts with the ecosystem, environments, all of these are changing constantly. We do need to monitor and provide feedback in real time. And likewise, there are aspects such as transparency, aspects such as how are we actually using AI itself, AI and ML based tools to test the performance and the functionality of the AI application. So that is another important area where you see a convergence between testing of AI and using AI for testing. And last but not the least, how are all of these getting translated to business KPIs and SLAs and other metrics? And that ties back the whole circle, right? We started with what were the business needs, and finally we end with how are we performing on those respective KPIs and SLAs. So this is my the reference model that we typically use in our organization. Different companies can utilize this, borrow, enhance, as the case may be. But most of these thought processes are fundamental in nature for AI-based systems, which you cannot ignore and must be taken into consideration when you are designing such applications. And obviously, if they are part of your requirements, then they should be part of the testing as well, which is why we will move to the next slide, which talks about what are those specific aspects within the applications which you would be testing for to ensure that they are meeting your requirements and purposes. So with Lakshmi, if you could go to the slide number 5, that talks about the different nuances that we use for testing those applications. Without any delay, I will just explain those different aspects. The first is how transparent or how well orchestrated those particular features are. So for this, we use the explainability of the model. So again, I talked about it in brief in the previous slide. A small change in the input can lead to a large change in the output. And most of the times they are statistical in nature. We may not be able to really understand what has gone behind the scenes when those changes happen. But as long as you have taken into consideration the boundary conditions and the real world aspects, I think you would be good enough in making sure that your risks are covered. At the same time, if there are any real world risks, it is our duty to communicate to the end customer, or at least to the testing users, before it is rolled out to the larger community. The second aspect, which is equally important, if not more, is that how are we mitigating the biases, and how is the design ensuring equality and inclusiveness across different user profiles. So I gave one example of left-handed users versus right-handed users. Let's take another example, which could be based on gender-based usage, because today that is very important. We cannot segregate anything which is easier for somebody and not easy for somebody else to use. So it should be equally accessible, equally usable, and it should be eliminating all possible biases and any unequal and it should be impartial in nature. Another important topic, on almost all of these 7 topics that I'm talking about are going to be important. So Lakshmi, I go to the next one. Could you just... Yeah, thank you. So this is on the accountability part of it. If something goes wrong, who will take that accountability? Again, I had one example of the Tesla's autopilot, and one of my friends was using that in their for their personal use. One particular incident that comes to my mind is that there was a sudden unintended acceleration. So now, for this particular instance, who is to be held accountable? Is it the design team? Is it the driver error? Or is it the way the Tesla was parked such that it had to suddenly accelerate? So there are different nuances associated with it. We'll have to take into consideration all of those, do some risk weighting to make sure that it is fair. At the same time, we do it in a controlled manner such that we we stay within the realms of the law as well as any other dimensions. Next one is on the reliability. Obviously, that is it is something which cannot be compromised. We have to ensure consistency, and in the world where we have high scalability, where we are rolling out to different countries, there can be different regulations and so on. It should be reliable in all circumstances. And then the next one is on the data aspect. We have to ensure that the data remains secure. We have taken the consent of all the users who are going to be providing their information, and privacy should be part of that and not an afterthought. The sixth and seventh example factors are basically around how we are staying within the realms of the ethical dimension, as well as making sure that you are within the compliance and regulatory requirements of the country or the ecosystem that you are operating with. So all of these are already known to us. It's well published and available, but it is highly important that it goes through every stage of our testing process, and that will not happen overnight. It starts with training the business analysts, training the developers, training the quality engineers, so that it comes as part of their ethos and they are able to follow that consistently and repeatedly throughout the development and maintenance process. So now I want to just throw a next dimension, which is around how we are incorporating QE in AI-based systems and how it is different from the traditional QE. Most of those aspects are similar to what I mentioned in the previous slide, but I just want to throw light on a couple of other aspects which we may not naturally look at. One is that AI-based systems are not deterministic in nature. So if you give a particular input, you give some documents, it does not mean that it would give the same answer every time. It is explainable, it is interpretable, but it is not deterministic. So with that as the premise, you will be able to easily differentiate all the other aspects which are related to the QE or the testing of AI applications, and how it is different from a traditional quality engineering of a software like Salesforce or any other productivity improvement software. So I wouldn't want to spend more time on this because we have to get into the specific solutions that we have developed. So now coming to the solutions, there are many different companies working on the research and development towards developing generative AI-based solutions according to their skill set and business needs. So similarly, Tech Mahindra is at the forefront in this aspect as well. So we have again taken into consideration how generative AI can assist in our end-to-end testing. But as part of that, the testing of AI-based applications forms an important part as well. So within AI-based system, obviously the application features, functionalities are all that have been taken as a given. But the data, the test data is something which is not predictable, or it is not as simple as what we would do for a traditional application. Therefore, we spend a lot of effort and our research towards generating quality test data, which can unearth different types of edge scenarios, boundary scenarios, as well as negative scenarios. Because more important than the positive scenarios are these boundary and negative scenarios, to make sure that the users as well as the ecosystem is protected by the AI system. So AI is obviously good for us. It is going to assist us in a lot of our initiatives, but there is also a risk that is associated. For instance, let's just take the autopilot car. If it goes at that speed, right, it can go at 100 miles an hour or whatever that speed is. It is potential to cause risk to the pedestrians or any other vehicles on the road. Therefore, there should be a lot of real world scenarios. Let's say whether the cameras are able to detect a road which is not having very clear demarcations. There could be some construction zone because of which the markings would have got changed. From white color, it might be in orange color. So all of those aspects will have to be taken into consideration when you are testing that application. The other aspect is that the weather conditions, you could have rain, you could have fog, you could have snow. So all of these aspects need to be taken into consideration. The second one is on the real-time testing. So in our software development world, we have this component testing, system integration testing, end-to-end testing, and then UAT, and then you go into production testing. So in AI world, it is obviously all of these could help you some part of the way, but then the real condition is in the live, the live testing or the production testing in live conditions. So that is where you will need to spend a lot of effort. Either you could use beta testers, users who are willing to take that initiative to test your applications, or you could roll it out within a limited ecosystem, a city which that will be a good test bed for our our rollout. So those real world scenarios are extremely important before we roll out an AI based application into the population. Third one is the adversarial testing, and that is some topic where we have made some recent advancement. A lot of our Gen AI models are reliant on the large language models and their efficiency and robustness. Now, how are we able to validate whether those LLMs are meeting fit for purpose, or are they having some risks or vulnerabilities? Yes, all of these large companies, Google's and the Azure, OpenAI, all of those have very good systems in place, but CrowdStrike did happen last year. So, none of these are completely immune to the vulnerabilities and risks that come with AI-based applications. Therefore, we need to think through what are the fail-safe mechanisms. how can a user take control if the AI actually fails or it is not able to do as it has been programmed. So therefore, those aspects are also very important when we are planning how we are going to test the quality of the AI-based application. The fourth one is obviously depending on the domain that we are talking about, we need to have the domain specific inputs, the domain specific business rules and validation criteria. And that is not a kind of a cookie cutter solution that you can just apply and move forward. So it needs a lot of thinking and experts, SMEs, whatever efforts the SMEs would have typically done in designing the application, they can now spend on validating the application's behavior, because a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of the design as well as the development would have been taken over by the Gen AI or the AI based application. However, the crux of the matter is in how well are we going to validate the functionality, both from functional aspect, validate the features both from functional as well as the non-functional aspects. And last but not the least is that how are we making sure that the human feedback, the aspect that we get when users start leveraging the different features, they explore the different aspects, because obviously the users will try to find out the workarounds or the ways to bypass the security mechanism that have been imposed by the AI systems designer. Now we have to be prepared and stay one step ahead and then make sure that we are taking those into consideration. Have an open collaboration mechanism so that you have our constant feedback coming from the user community, and those get incorporated into our testing lifecycle. So these are 5 areas which we have invested in, and we are making sure that AI based systems are getting covered. If you have any other aspects that you are already doing, or you think there are aspects which are beyond these 5, please feel free to share it in the chat window or separately. I would be happy to listen to them. Okay, we can move forward. This was a little longish slide, but I wanted to spend enough time on that to make sure that everybody understands the nuances associated with it. So here are 3 solutions that we have built. TechM App Genies is one solution that is leveraging the generative AI's power in utilizing for the different use cases, both in the application development, application maintenance, quality engineering. Happy to talk about it in a separate forum. Anybody who wants to see a demo and so on, please feel free to get in touch with me. The second one is the AdWest, which is the solution I talked about to test the LLMs or test the AI. So this is basically to see if there are any limitations, either from the security aspect, the performance aspect, or the biases, the different fairness models, as well as the real world scenarios that we might be needing to validate. And the third one we have done in collaboration with one of our partners. It is to ensure that we have good quality of data cutting across the life cycle, to make sure that anytime we are generating synthetic or real world like production data, to test our scenarios seamlessly and bringing it into the testing life cycle through the DevOps mechanism, so that you don't have to manually add that to your pipeline. So that was the 3 solutions that we have, and just a brief about how they work and so on. But as I mentioned to you earlier, happy to do a focused demo or any discussion around those, and those solutions are ready to deploy. There is one case study as well, which I would like to spend a few minutes on, and then open it up for Q&A. So Lakshmi, if you can just move to the next slide. I hope my audio is audio consistent.
Yes,
And
you're audible very well.
Okay, great. So this is about App Genies, as I mentioned to you, our Gen AI powered platform. It has a set of use cases that we have already built, such as story refinement. So what we do is, in a typical end-to-end scenario, we take a user story from the customer or the business team, normally the user stories are mentioned in different levels of abstraction. Some of them may be detailed, some others may be, very high level one-liner. One approach is to train everybody, make sure that everybody follows a similar template. But, it is more often than not, the habit just changes and then you go back to the old ways. So we found a solution saying that instead of training everybody and then the team members also get changed often, so let us use Gen AI to standardize the input that we are getting. So let's say that whether it is a one-liner or a 10-liner, if we tell the Gen AI that this is my expectation through the prompt engineering layer, it should have some acceptance criteria, some definitions of done. This is how you should program it, and give a few samples to it, train, and then that's it. So you have a solution which gives you a pre-programmed set of user stories. We use that, we convert that to test cases, because a lot of times we spend effort in designing test cases. So we tell the Gen AI that, okay, 100% of the test cases divide, let's say 40% for positive, 40% for negative, or edge boundary cases, and then another 10 or 20 for exploratory in nature. And then you have those, those kind of breakdown of test cases. And then the third step that we typically do is convert those test cases to test scripts. Now you can have a different language. Playwright can be an option. Selenium can be an option. Somebody else may use a different custom framework. So you can program all of that and advise the Gen AI that Python-based framework or any other language, Cypress, TestNG, and then you have that blueprint which would be compliant with those languages and the tool that you choose. After which, obviously, a user input for refinement, review, and then usage. That can be a minimal effort rather than the maximum coding effort that typically goes in a test automation engagement. And again, in sprint automation is very much possible when you leverage Gen AI for bulk of your conversion. There are other use cases as well. We can talk about it separately. The second one is on the AdWest solution. If you can go to the next one quickly, that is the case where we input a lot of the model testing related use cases into the AI system. And then the AI system itself tells us what should be those specific aspects that you should validate to make sure that it is going to be compliant with your organization, your country specific regulations, as well as any other real world scenarios that you are worried about, depending on the domain as well as the industry that we are operating in. So that is about AdWest. With that, I think we have come to the last slide, if I am not mistaken, which is basically our Gen AI implementation for a large North American railroad. So what we did is, this was almost 2 years into the making. So almost in late 2022, we started this engagement, and now it is one of the flagship engagements, and we have in fact filed a joint patent along with our client. So how it worked, it's that initially we started off with testing related use cases, 1 or 2 use cases, both for functional testing and then performance testing. And along the way, we obviously got a lot of inaccuracies or inconsistencies. We fine-tuned both from the model standpoint as well as from the prompt engineering standpoint, because somewhere we had to establish a middle ground, right? So we need to know which are the aspects which are within the scope of the large language model, which are obviously out of our control, and which of the ones are within our control, which is the prompt engineering layer. And through a trial and error method over maybe 6 to 12 months, we got a final formula or recipe, which then got replicated across multiple other engagements that we are implementing. So we call this the fourth Amigo. It is a joint initiative between Tech Mahindra and our client. And then it uses multimodal Gen AI, which means that we are able to take inputs across multiple sources, whether it can be image-based, voice-based, text-based, code-based, all of those. And then obviously the output also can be in the form of image or code or text at the moment. We have not gone beyond at this point in time. So that is on the case study that we did. So I think this was around 30 minutes of my time. I wanted to make sure that we cover all the aspects, but I do have some more things to share if we have more time. Otherwise, Lakshmi, we can even throw it open to the questions. If we have enough questions, we can start addressing them. But that's about it from my end. Thank you for the opportunity.
Hey, Pradeep, we have 10 minutes, and I don't think, I mean, I have a couple of more questions. If you want, we can just move on to that. So, one, I think in the past year or so, what specific obstacles or hesitations have you noticed among enterprises when it comes to integrating AI into their quality engineering processes?
Yes, a very interesting question, Suresh. Thank you for this. A lot of, and this is I'm saying from a personal experience, nothing about the company or any client that I'm talking about. It is a general perception. Whenever we talk about Gen AI and impact that Gen AI can have on our ecosystem, one of the questions that people ask is how accurate it is. Okay, and that is something which, obviously is the answer is that it will be as accurate as the way you have trained it, right? The answer is a kind of a mirror image of how good is your training data for you to have trained that model to give the output that you desire or you expect. So therefore, the crux of it or the bottom line of it is treat AI or Gen AI like a child. Okay, the more that you train, the more that you care for and then use them, guide them, you will be able to get good results. Obviously time is something which is a dimension that you will have to wait for, but then if with the right kind of training data and the right kind of effort, it would yield the results sooner rather than later. That is one dimension which I have seen a lot of customers or a lot of the interactions that I have seen, they delay or it gets postponed because the accuracy is not guaranteed on day one. But the advice is that the more you delay, the competitors or the other people in the industry, they are already jumping into the bandwagon and they are training their models, they are working on refining them and taking them to the next level. So therefore, don't worry about the accuracy on day one. The accuracy is a byproduct. Focus on what are the requirements, how are we training the models to suit our requirements, and what are the investments that we are doing to make sure that it is staying within the compliance and the regulatory requirements.
Okay. So the next question is, can you share insights on any emerging tools or products specifically designed for testing AI-powered applications? What new solutions are entering into the market?
Sure. So I would say that this particular question, better than me, I think the AI or Gen AI, you can ask this to the chat GPT itself and then it would have more information than what I would have. But without, making any, having biases towards any product partner or any other companies, I'm sure that it's an open world. It is an open sourced community. So every company has enough raw material ammunition for them to build a solution on top of the large language models that already exist. I don't think any company needs to really worry about building it from scratch. They can borrow or they can leverage what is available in the open source community and then build on top of it. But I have seen certain specialization. It is important to choose the path. Either a company can be specialized or generalized. They can either be a platform player or they can be a service player. So all of those are the specific decisions that the company or the person may need to make. And accordingly, I would say that the sky is the limit. There are different companies which are specializing in both the tooling aspect as well as the cloud aspect, and then the use cases that we typically use. So all of these put together will be the right recipe for success in this competitive world.
All right, one final question. How is the rise of AI influencing or reshaping the functionality and relevance of traditional test automation tools? Are we seeing any significant changes or adaptations in existing tools?
Yeah, this is a very important question. You would have seen the rise and you can say a plateau of a lot of these traditional record and replay kind of tools, which were dominating the market. They were probably having more than 50% market share at some point in time, and the advantage that they had at that point in time was that not all applications could be read by each other, right? So there was the thick wall where the interpretation of code was not so easy. So there were applications which had tie-ups or some kind of alliances with each other, which prevented you from accessing the code beneath the code layer, beneath the presentation layer, which necessitated for us to buy or leverage certain commercial automation tools. But today, with the rise of web-based applications, mobile-based applications, again, within mobile community, there are some walls, especially iOS. Not every automation tool can penetrate into iOS. So there are those kind of ecosystem boundaries. But by and large, anything which is cloud native, anything which is web-based, I think it is open source. Any tool can read through them. So there, I don't see any challenges per se. Any of these modern automation tools, they are able to serve our purpose. But as I said earlier, most of these sessions before me, they have covered Gen AI for testing in a lot of detail, more than what I have. But my purpose of my session was to throw awareness on how testing of AI based system is different, and for that there are very few tools at the moment, I feel, and there is a lot of scope for application owners or product partners to look at that in greater detail. I think there should be a mix of human plus AI based tools to test AI applications. It is not going to be possible for AI based tools to themselves read and interpret. The one very simple example I want to talk about is, again, an autopilot feature when I was driving my brother's Tesla recently, is that it is very good when you are taking a right turn, because a lot of times, especially in the US, where you drive on the right side of the road, you don't expect any other vehicle to come and interrupt your path when you are doing the right hand turn. But when you are doing the left hand turn, that is when there is a lot of variability and ambiguity associated. So who stops first? And there, it goes in a cycle, right, in most of the countries. So it has to be exactly attentive. And if some human user breaks that chain, how does the AI interpret, or how does it validate it? So the testing scenarios are not completely possible with AI systems alone. There should be these angles associated with it: real world testing, combination of human plus AI. A human can train the AI to anticipate certain scenarios, and then the AI can repeat them and then go deeper into those, bifurcate that into mini scenarios and so on. So it is completely a combination of domain driven testing with the power of AI.
There are more questions coming up, but I think due to time limitation, we just have 1 minute left. So maybe one last question.
Let's take one more.
When do you think a
Yeah.
model is mature enough to use in production? How was it benchmarked?
Okay. I think the model is ready when you have uh, complied with all the written or stated requirements and checklists. Obviously, there could be some unwritten rules, some other aspects which come on the fly, but those can be taken care of in a protected, beta testing environment. But for all practical purposes, I think the place for AI to really test its value is in production. So there are industries such as healthcare, aviation, and so on, where you cannot afford to test in production. I do respect that. So in those cases, we will have to do an extensive testing in a protected environment, which is why you have some volunteers, and then you have some kind of indemnity signed along with them. So those will go in a separate path. But in most other industries which are not dealing with human life or animal life or any risks of that sort, I think the real world testing is obviously necessary before it can be rolled out into a population level rollout.
All right, I think we have reached 2:20. So thank you so much, Pradeep. I think this was a very insightful discussion. So thanks a lot.
Sure, and please keep the questions noted, and if they can be shared with me over email or a chat, I would be happy to continue responding to them.
And feel free to join Pradeep in the networking session today evening. He will be there to answer any questions you may have, and also continue the conversation with him on social media. And you could tag Test Formation 2025 and Team My America there. Thank you. Thank you, Pradeep.
Sure. Thank you, Lakshmi.